Amen. Hey, everybody. So good to be with you here at the Kaufman campus, as well as all of you online, as Blake mentioned just a moment ago. Today is a little bit special because I'm actually doing a first. Not only am I sharing with the online campus from here at Kaufman, but I'm also sharing simulcasting to the Forney campus. So we want to say to each of you at Forney, thank you so very much for tuning in. Know it's a little bit different, and there's a reason why this is happening. We're not headed in this direction or anything. We just don't have other options. And the reason why is because we were on our way back from a mission trip in Ghana, and Randy Wade missed his connection flight. He's like, I have to stop and get a donut. And we're like, no, I'm just kidding. It wasn't donuts, it was tacos. It was tacos, actually. And no, goodness gracious. So listen, but really it was a fantastic trip that we had in Ghana. And so 4 of us, we just had been piecemealing getting back because, we had a problem. Someone flushed a diaper down the toilet there on the airplane, and so we weren't able to fly out for 3 hours late, which made us miss our connection. And so because there had been so many delays and people that had missed their flights earlier in the week, we weren't able to get back like we were planning on it. And so we just are trickling back in. Some are today, some are even actually tomorrow. I'm going to be able to get back. And so it is great to have those of you that are online, those of you that are there in New York City, as well as those of you that are in Africa. This is going to be a really special day. Also for those of you that are at Forney, hope that this is encouraging to you as well. So I got to say, the mission was incredible, and I see things like this. I see like what we do through Serve, and I see that the way that you guys made trips like the ones possible, and I'm just blown away because here's you guys are getting it done. I mean, we're glad that we can provide a little bit of vision for it and kind of get help you with the method, but honestly, you guys are doing a great job of getting this done around the world and in your communities. And so thank you so very much for trusting us as your ministry partner, as you seek to accomplish everything that God wants you to accomplish, that you live out your purpose for the world. And so we're grateful for that, as has been mentioned several times before. So this is not normally how we do it, but today this is how we do it because that's what we got to deal with. And so we're going to work through that. The African mission, I just want to mention this, is going great. Pastor Stephen Apiatara built a fantastic foundation, and it was crazy. This time it was bigger and more activity than we have ever done before. That is an amazing legacy when something is better when you're gone than it was when you were here. And that's an amazing thing. And so I encourage you to continue to pray for our partners in Africa. It was a great trip. I got back at like 11:45 last night. And so then, of course, because of jet lag, I wake up at 3:30. And so, I'm just kind of running on fumes. So let's see if we can get this thing done. All right. So after my first year of college, I got a job for a fantastic company called GTE Telemessenger. And it's a technology company that, kind of featured a cutting edge innovation. I don't know if you ever heard of it, called voicemail. Yeah, because up until that point, you actually had to have a tape that you put in an answering machine. But voicemail, you could get a beep on your pager, remember pagers? And then you could stop at a payphone, now we're going way back, and you could call in that number and you could listen to the voicemail that someone else left for you. This was a brand new cutting edge technology in the early 90s. And so I got an internship, and I was the youngest intern in the entire GTE, which is now Verizon, the entire GTE program. But don't be too impressed, because I was not a prodigy. That was the case at all. I was not a good candidate at all. As an incoming sophomore, I was not what they were looking for at all. They used the internship to recruit people that are going to soon be able to come and work for them. And as a kid that had just finished my freshman year, going into my sophomore year, I was not what they were looking for. And it's not because I had a great GPA. It's not because I had all this intelligence or experience, had none of that. It wasn't because of my wit or, my incredible good looks. It was none of those things that actually allowed me to get that job. What allowed me to get the job is in South Lake, my next door neighbor was Dr. Michael Rishermay. And Michael was a close friend of the family. My family was close to his, and he was a leader in this industry, in this technology industry, and he was an expert with finance and stats and kind of marketing, if you will. And so he had accomplished a great deal and actually made the company a lot of money down through the years. And the company would not have been interested in me had he not submitted my resume and was the go-between with the company and said, this is the intern I want. And they said, yes, sir, Mr. Michael, whichever intern you want is the intern you can have. I got my job because of his work, because of his accomplishments, because of who he was, his insider connections, not mine. He was my access. He was my advocate, and he had been working both sides of the table for me to be able to have access to this internship. Have any of you ever felt like you needed a spiritual go-between? Someone working and advocating on your behalf before God? Because let's speak practically for a moment. You and I live in the natural world. We live in this body, and God is supernatural, so he's kind of there. There seems to be a chasm between us and God. And it's even worse when it comes to behavior because he's absolutely perfect, and we're not. Some of us are like outstandingly imperfect. We're really good at being imperfect. But the ground is level at the foot of the cross. Everybody is implicated equally because of sin. And all of us are called sinners. We have a problem because the Bible teaches that God cannot be in the presence of sin. So how can we get access to God? I'm going to teach you something that not every church will tell you today. There's actually two ways to get access to God. The first one is not taught very much. This is found in the Sermon on the Mount and several other places, but you got to look at it at Sermon on the Mount. Jesus says this, and this is real easy, okay? This may be the easiest way for you to get to heaven. If you don't want to go the whole Jesus route, here's a way to do it, okay? Be perfect as your heavenly Father is perfect. That's it. Just be perfect. Now before you think, okay, I can do that. We're not just talking about actions. You got to look at context. We're talking about everything you say, and if that doesn't get you tripped up, then it's everything you think. I got a problem now, and we're just getting started because then it goes all the way to every motive you've ever had. You've got to be perfect, perfectly in line with God in every one of those to get in that way. And I know what you're thinking. You're saying, okay, I know what you're thinking. Because you're like, well, Pastor, that's ridiculous. I mean, I'm only human. You're right. We were doomed from the very start. So we need another way to have access to God, who's kind of up in heaven. And if we want to have eternal life, we got to have some kind of go-between. There's got to be some kind of advocate. There's got to be someone that bridges that gap. Sure enough, you start reading the Bible from like really very early on, and you begin to see that God provided just that. In Exodus chapter 20, God gives Moses the 10 Commandments, and you know, he gives them, in addition to the law, there were instructions concerning worship of God and sacrifices that for sin that need to be a part of this worship. And as part of this revelation, God told Moses to take Aaron and to make Aaron the high priest, and his sons would be the priests. So like Aaron was, you know, varsity, and all his sons were JV. That's kind of how it worked here. And the priests were responsible for maintaining the temple, leading worship services, and making these sacrificial offerings on behalf of the people. And the reason why is because ordinary folk like you and me, man, we couldn't walk in, stand in the presence of God because of our sin and imperfection. You find this all throughout the Old Testament. Your iniquities have made a separation between you and your God, we find in Isaiah and in several other places. If we had time to go through, we could show you. But the priest had to serve then as a go-between. But here's the problem. The priests had the same problem that any of us would. They had sin in their own life. But God appointed them as designated representatives for man and gave them a long list of instructions for cleansing and purification of themselves. They had to follow these meticulously in order to be able to do their work in the tabernacle and ultimately in the temple. Let me just show you a little bit about this. There's a lot more, but in Leviticus chapter 16, verse 2, here's what it says. And the Lord said to Moses, tell Aaron your brother not to come in, not to come at any time into the holy place inside the veil, that's in the Holy of Holies, before the mercy seat, so they call the Ark of the Covenant, that is on the ark, so that he may not die. And I'm sure Aaron gets stuck at this point, and he says, I will appear in the cloud over the mercy seat. And then he goes on and talks to him about the bath that he should take and the way that he should behave and the sash around his waist. And there was undergarments that he should wear, very specific undergarments. And at this point, it's important for him to get this right so that he may not die. If I'm Aaron, I'm like, hey, let's hold up here. Let's move back a little bit. Let's review the instructions one more time. What kind of underwear was this? Like Fruit of the Loom, Hanes? I'm willing to go Lululemon if I have to. It doesn't matter. You just let me know. I mean, does it say anything about, the type of loofah we're supposed to use when we get the ceremonial bath? Because I want to get this right. The last thing I want to do is be prancing around in the Holy of Holies and get knocked over dead. So God puts all this in place, that once a year on Yom Kippur, the Day of Atonement, or actually the Day of Covering, the high priest and only the high priest would enter into the tabernacle and the Holy of Holies, the place where the presence of God dwelt, as did the Ark of the Covenant. Now you can see a picture of it here. And as you look at it, both here at the Kaufman campus and online, you can see that there's an outer court that has the orange bottom there. What has the yellow part of that is the Holy of Holies. That's where the Ark of the Covenant was. And the Ark of the Covenant, the Ark of the Covenant actually looked a little bit like this. We got a picture of it, and there it is. And so you see those two cherubim or angels there with the touching wings. It looks kind of like a throne. It's a seat. It's called the mercy seat. And what this high priest would do is he would walk in once a year, and he would take the blood of the lamb, and he would sprinkle the blood of the lamb on the mercy seat to cover or to atone for the sins that the people had actually forgotten about. And so this was an amazingly sacred moment. As a matter of fact, it's one of the high holy Jewish holidays. He would enter in, and the Jewish tradition tells us that they would actually tie a rope around his, some says waist, some says ankle, so that if he was struck dead, if God smote him, that's a good Bible word, by the way, if you read the King James, that if he got smote by God because he did not properly purify himself, that they would just want to pull that corpse right on out. Nobody wanted to go in and get it out. You can see why, because the same fate may behest them. That's why he could do, but listen, before he could do any of that, he had to make these series of bloody animal sacrifices for himself. You know why? Because he had his own sin. He had to atone for his own sin before he could walk in before the mercy seat. I'm sure he was scared to death when he got in there that he did it right. He was just praying that when he got in there that he would find mercy and not judgment, because that seat, that mercy seat, was not where mercy was freely given. It was actually where it was begged for. It was actually a place of judgment. And the high priest made once a year at Yom Kippur this change. But it wasn't just this. The high priest would do it daily. You want to know why he had to do sacrifices daily in the outer court, not the inner court. He didn't go into the Holy of Holies but once a year. But on the outer court, you want to know why he had to make sacrifices every year, every day? Because people were sinning every single day, right? If it was some of you, it'd be every hour. I mean, we have to have even more. You bring your animal, you drop it off in the outer court with the priest, and he would handle it for you, because ordinary people can't just go waltzing in to the room next to the Holy of Holies. I mean, God was apparently, his presence was represented in the Holy of Holies, but only the priests, and kind of as they would ceremonially wear all this really nice garb, and they would enter into this moment, into that place, and they would make a sacrifice for those people that had brought that offering. Every high priest was a go-between between man and God. But they were definitely heavy on the human side of the equation. You know why the priest was heavy on the human side? Because the priest was a human. Which brings us to our focal passage today in Hebrews chapter 4, verse 14. I promise I've already done some of the work, but I wanted you to hear it with some context. As a matter of fact, if you've got the ESV and several other translations, the subheading for these verses says Jesus, the great high priest. Verse 14 of Hebrews chapter 4. Since then we have a great high priest who has passed through the heavens, Jesus, the Son of God. Let us hold fast to our confession. For we do not have a high priest who is unable to sympathize with our weaknesses, but one who in every respect has been tempted as we are, yet without sin. Let us then with confidence draw near to the throne of grace, that we may receive mercy and find grace to help in the time of need. Now here's the contrast. For every high priest chosen from amongst men is appointed to act on behalf of men in relation to God, to be that go-between, to offer gifts and sacrifices for sin. He can deal gently with the ignorant and wayward, since he himself is beset with weakness. Because of this, he is obligated to offer sacrifice for his own sins, just as he does for those of the people. And no one takes this honor for himself, but only when called by God, just as Aaron was. So also Christ did not exalt himself to be made high priest, but was appointed by him who said, "You are my son, today I have begotten you." As he says also in another place, "You are a priest forever after the line or the order of Melchizedek." And this is a really interesting revelation here, because during Jesus' time on earth, there was a high priest. Y'all know the high priest's name? His name was Caiaphas. He's the one that actually hatched the plan to get rid of Jesus. The high priest position was actually filled. But this passage says that Jesus was the real high priest, and he was the greatest high priest who ever served, because unlike these other high priests, Jesus predated all of the priestly system, just like Melchizedek. So here's what I would say about Melchizedek, and this is a little bit strange teaching here, but hang with me for a second. He was in place as a priest before the priestly system was put in place. That explains the reference to him. Before Aaron, he was Aaron before Aaron. And it was precedent at this time. There was precedent, and ancestral honor was the key to those ancient contexts. And just as Melchizedek was greater since he preceded Aaron, Jesus preceded Melchizedek and was therefore greater than him. If that makes sense. Let me see if I can just put it this way. So Melchizedek is greater than Aaron, and Jesus is greater than Melchizedek. You know why? Because Jesus was the eternal Son of God. That's why. The second person of the triune God. It's like going to play a pickup game out on a basketball court. And when you do, there's two guys. Both of them have on Steph Curry jerseys. One of them's just a dude. One of them's Steph Curry. Who you want on your team? I'll go with Steph Curry. I'll take my chances. You want to know why? Because he's the real deal. And the other guy only has a Steph Curry jersey on because Steph Curry was great before he even bought it. This is what it's like. These other priests, man, they are a picture of Jesus. They point us to the work of Jesus, but they are far inferior to Jesus. They can only enter into the Holy of Holies and the presence of God. They can only do that once a year. But Jesus lived there because he was God. Wherever he went, there was the presence of God in the body of Jesus of Nazareth. Other priests could go into the Holy of Holies, but look at 4:14. We have a great high priest who has passed through the heavens, Jesus, the Son of God. The best the other priests could do was enter into this little bitty room on earth to meet with God. But Jesus performed his ministerial duties in the spiritual realm. He did it all in heaven. And as a result of being fully God, Jesus lived a perfect life without sin. Look at 15, it says, he was without sin. Compare that to 5:1-3 that we went a minute ago about these high priests that wanted to act on behalf of men. They were very human in their likeness because they were human. Every other high priest had sin of their own. And when they went to make sacrifices for the sins of the people, they had to make sacrifices for themselves. But not Jesus. He was the perfect high priest because he was without sin. That's the kind of priest you want. So every so often, I'll go to like an event, like a wedding or a funeral, or sometimes even here at church, and someone will call me father, and I'm like, whoa, don't call me father. You know, I mean that I am not a priest, and I'm not offended because they think I'm Catholic. I'm offended because they think I'm worthy to be a priest. Because I'm just telling you right now, if your righteousness is dependent on my ability to be righteous and be a righteous go-between in you and God, then we are all in a heap of trouble, every one of us. You online folk too. You see, Jesus is the great high priest because he was God. He was perfect. He was without sin. So the other high priests weren't the best go-between because they were human. They were heavy on that human side with their own flaws and their own sin that kind of held them back. However, Jesus actually seems to have a problem on the complete opposite end of the spectrum. He's heavy on the God side. He's perfect and without flaw. And when somebody is high, so high and lofty and otherworldly, there's no way they could possibly understand me, right? My flawed, broken, human, imperfect, frail self. We see this mindset in 2022, right? Is one of the quickest ways to get crucified in the public discourse happens to be when you try to diagnose and solve problems that you've never lived, because we're like, I don't know, how can they know? And maybe we feel a little bit that way with Jesus. I mean, how can Jesus possibly help me with my sin and brokenness when he's never lived it. Which is why maybe one of the verses that every person needs to know is found in Hebrews chapter 4, verse 15. For we do not have a high priest who is unable to sympathize with our weakness, but one who in every respect has been tempted as we are, yet without sin. You see that? Jesus sympathizes with your weakness. He understands your humanness. He knows what it means. You want to know why? Because he was a human for 33 years. And during those 33 years, he lived a more or less normal human existence. He was bound by the same things that you and I were. Bible says he actually grew in stature and in wisdom, which means when Jesus was 2, he wasn't doing calculus. Which is a good thing because calculus is worthless. No, just kidding. Unless you're an engineer. We love you. He got hungry when he didn't eat, and thirsty when he didn't drink. Had to go potty when he did. I mean, he experienced pain, emotional pain, when someone close to him, like Lazarus, dies. It says he was grieved to his very core. He was misunderstood. He was betrayed. Have you found yourself yet? He bled when he was cut. He coughed when he had a cold. He even experienced what it felt like, what it was like to feel forsaken by God. When on that cross he cried out, my God, why have you forsaken me? Now some might say, and I guess it's a fair argument, that he was the miracle man. So his experience was nothing like mine. He could do a miracle anytime he wants to, and that sounds valid, but show me a single place where Jesus used his supernatural powers and ability to alleviate his own suffering or difficulty. He didn't do it. All his miracles were for others. And you best bet if I actually had the ability to do miracles, I would do them to benefit myself all the time. I'd be like, poof, the traffic on the Highway 80 bridge over the Trinity would be gone once and for all. And like alakazam, my kid's college would be paid for. And voila, I would have a perfect sprinter's body. I mean, I would help other people, but let me just be honest. I would be enjoying the perks. But Jesus faced his pain. He faced his difficulty without ever calling upon supernatural assistance that the Bible says was right there for him. It was his temptation. For we do not, says in verse 15, for we do not have a high priest who is unable to sympathize with our weakness, but one who in every respect has been tempted as we are, yet is without sin. In every respect, he's been tempted as we are. Not necessarily the exact same temptations that Satan brings at you, but what it means is that Jesus got the full arsenal that Satan had to offer. Jesus didn't live in a spiritual bubble without temptation. You and I need to recognize that we've got a God that understands the proclivities of the flesh. He had a body of sin, but he never had a sinning body, and there's a big difference. Jesus knows the power of temptation. Hebrews 4:15 tells us that he isn't trying to diagnose or solve a problem he hasn't experienced. He lived that problem. He knows what it is to be human, which makes him the perfect high priest, our perfect representative before God. He is fully God and he is fully man. Both are important. It's kind of like, anybody remember those commercials for the hair club for men? Anybody remember these things back in the day? What would the guy say at the end of the commercial? His name was Cy Sperling. Here, let me see. Here's a picture of Cy Sperling. And he would show this picture and say, I'm not just a president, I'm a client. Great marketing. You want to know why? Because no bald man wants some man with beautiful head of hair talking to him about hair problems. What you know about hair problems? Jesus isn't just fully God, right? He is fully man. He's lived what we're living. He's gone through what we've gone through, something very similar to it. Therefore, he is not just empathetic in that he can see our issues. He is sympathetic. He has been through them. So it's Father's Day, and I think I would be remiss if I didn't mention that perhaps the greatest blessing of my life has been watching my 5 children grow up. 4 of them are right here today in this particular service that we are filming. And so I've had a great time. But I'm going to be honest with you. Raising children is incredibly rewarding, but it is an amazing amount of tiring work. Now, to be fair, my wife did a lot of it. Or some of it. It wasn't just me. I'm just kidding. She did basically all of it. And we were told when we had children, we had 3 kids. We were told we couldn't have another kid. Doctor didn't say we couldn't have 2 more. So we got like a bonus pack, right? Well, the good news is I guess we got a couple of spares. But you choose which. Just kidding, kids. But here's the thing that was so really challenging about it when they were born. My son, my daughter, Jordan, was 8. My son, Luke, was 5. And Sarah was 2 when the twins were born. She had just turned 2. And that was a handful, no doubt. There was a lady in our small group, and her name was Karen Haney. And she actually is Kristen Klickner's mom. And Karen was in our small group, and she lives in East Texas now. And if you're listening, Karen, just want to tell you that we love you and thank you for being such a minister to our family when the twins were born. She was giving great advice. She always did that. She found ways to get people to help us, and she would stand in the gap any place where she knew we were going to have a struggle. And if someone tried to put an extra burden on us, she'd be like, "No, ma'am. No, sir. Don't bother them. They're just trying to tread water." And this was awesome. You know why she did this and why she was so good at it? Because 20 years earlier, she had given birth to twins while having a 2-year-old and a 3-year-old in the house. She was a sympathetic high priest. Not just empathetic, but sympathetic. And our priest, our heavenly mediator, Jesus Christ, is not merely empathetic, feeling for us. He is sympathetic. He feels with us. Therefore, it says in verse 16, let us then with confidence draw near to the throne of grace. What kind of throne is it? Jesus sits on the throne of grace? That can't be right. I've read the Old Testament. The mercy seat was a throne of judgment where one would beg for mercy, which is why it had to be covered by the blood of the Lamb, that somehow or another that God would accept the death of a lamb instead of wiping out all the people that had sinned and failed to confess it. But when Jesus graciously died for the sins of the world, he ascended into heaven, and now he occupies what Revelation calls the mercy seat, and he occupies it forever. Therefore, the throne of grace is where Jesus sits. And the text exhorts us, let us draw near to that throne. See, this is important for us today because so many of us, we have this view that God is really, really angry and that he's sitting on this lofty perch and he's just waiting to strike us down with a lightning bolt. And so we're like cockroaches. When the light comes on, we run to darkness, but that's not what we need. I mean, when you understand that Jesus is compassionate and sympathetic, when you understand that he has the grace for your mistakes, you can draw near when you're weak, even if you've given in, even if you've fallen for the 20th time. That's why it says, let us then with confidence draw near. With confidence. That's a spirit of I belong here. I don't come into the presence of God with trepidation, with my tail tucked between my legs. I come in with my head up. I come in with confidence because I belong in his presence. Actually, I embody it. You know, my oldest 2 kids, they come home and even though they live in Waco and in Addison, they still come to my house and act like it's theirs. He'll take our food. I'll just take a piece of furniture. We'll be like, where'd that thing go? Didn't we have a lamp over here a little bit earlier? They'll take our Netflix. Jordan. She didn't even live in our house anymore. Pretty much take our pocketbooks. You want to know why? Because it's a home of grace. You may stay in Waco, you may stay in Addison, but with us, you've always got a home. You see, when you think that heaven is your home, when you think that God is on your side, you are not scared to death to enter before him. You don't feel like you have to say 30 minutes of these and thous when you go to pray. You just walk in and say, Dad, I need to know what's up. Let us then with confidence draw near to the throne of grace that we may receive mercy and find help in the time of need. You receive mercy. That's crazy. You don't receive a wrist slap, not an I told you so, not a ticket from God the cop. who's running a speed trap trying to bust you, you receive mercy. If you have come to Christ, when you come to Christ, you're born into the family of God and you get mercy. You've got a new identity and you've got a new destination. For everyone already in Christ, your sins are covered. You know, I was thinking about this yesterday. I was sitting in the airport on my way back from Africa, and I said 10 of them are still there in New York, and I'm just thinking through this. And I realized I think the prayer that I pray more than anything else for the people of Sea Life, this and that they would be committed to changing the world personally, is that they would begin to see themselves as God sees them. Oh, what would change the day if you could see yourself as God sees you? Dads, don't you wish your children could have just one day in your body and recognize how much you want the best for them? And that even though some of us are not always the best at expressing it, that desire within our heart is strong. Well, God's the perfect Father. He's created the perfect home, and He is calling to you and I. There is nothing to fear. Come near. I'm told that Jewish fathers, for the 12 years prior to a child's bar mitzvah, anytime their sons walk into the room, they stop whatever they're doing and they tell their son, "You're not a bother to me. You matter." And I think that if today you would draw near to the throne room of God, you would find Him say the exact same thing. Stop thinking that you have disappointed Him. Stop thinking that you have let Him down. Stop thinking that you have a sin problem. Listen, you have a self-destructive sin problem, but quite frankly, God doesn't have a sin problem anymore. And when you get into His presence, you are reminded of that and you are able to walk like the child that you are. Come and find mercy, find compassion, find grace. He is a help in the time of need. He'll help you stand up to temptation while you're being tempted. And sometimes we try to stand up to temptation on our own and we feel ashamed because we have not only fallen, but maybe we're even tempted to fall. I'm just telling you, the best way to overcome temptation in your time of need is to depend on the God who has already been the go-between, has already made you righteous before God. He has birthed you into the family, and all you've got to do is capitalize on the identity that already exists. Come home. Don't try to fight sin on your own. You're no match for sin. Come near, for there's nothing to fear. You know, I suspect that our biggest regrets in life, and I bet this is true for each of you that are online as well, that our biggest regrets in life happened when we ran away from the God that we should have been running towards. And we ran towards something that we should have been running away from. You will find that when you come to Jesus, He escorts you to the Father, and you experience in the Spirit the power and the fullness of God in your life. Today, we're invited to run towards the mercy seat. You know that mercy seat that we saw just a minute ago? Today, that seat is no longer covered by the blood, but has been canceled by the King. That throne of grace is occupied by the Lamb of God who takes away the sin of the world and grants us access to God forever. He will graciously forgive us because He is the perfect high priest and has already done the work for us. Oh, if you could see that today and begin to see yourself the way that God sees you, you would enter before that throne recognizing that it has been occupied, it has been propitiated, it has been finished and filled one time. And you and I no longer have to make a sacrifice, for the sacrifice has already been made, and all you've got to do is receive it, and you are birthed with new life. Would you pray with me? Father, I recognize that in this room there are people that still have business. And so, Father, I'm praying that you would graciously remind us that forgiveness need not even be asked for before it has already been granted. May we receive what already exists. May we acknowledge places where we have lived below the identity that you've given to us. May we never buy into the, oh, what does it matter mentality, but instead, may we walk in the newness and the victory of life. May we look to you, who is our ever-present help in times of trouble. May we see it for what it is. May we embrace it. We love you and we trust you and we praise you, for we know that you are the one that has given us everything that we need. May this worship response just be a time of celebration. We hope that it is a fragrant offering to you, but we pray that it would encourage our hearts. In just a moment, we're going to be taking communion together. I want to look at a couple of words here. And in just a moment, when we take that communion together, even if you're online with us, I want you to recognize that there is a God who there is no reason to fear. So today, you can draw near. We thank you for that, Jesus. Amen.